Welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. The Socceroos have secured a 1-0 win over Cameroon thanks to a late Jordy Bos goal in Sydney on Friday night. It was a game where we saw two debuts and a fast start from the Socceroos, but against an understrength Cameroon side, we lacked a cutting edge, as we have seen on occasion recently. With one more game in this window against Curaçao, what can we expect? Elsewhere, our Matildas are back in action for their clubs, and there's some big news around a couple of them, plus some shock results in the A-League Women's, a shake-up at Sydney FC, and we'll finish with our Team of the Week. Bring in Mopper. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. It's International Week, isn't it? And it's slap bang in the middle of World Cup qualifiers. And obviously, Graham Arnold gets his big shot next week too against Bolivia. So that'll be exciting to watch going forward and seeing whether we've got two Australian coaches there. And it's all happening around International Week, isn't it? There's so much domestic pressure. You've already seen many countries have to release players. And like you said, understrength Cameroon. But, you know, they made a contest and, we'll break down some of the Socceroos. I know it's only a friendly, but, there's still some work to do, isn't there, around our play and around our creativity. But is that design or is that just the way it's set up to be? That's probably the biggest question that I've got on my lips for you tonight.
I think that's the big question on a lot of Socceroos fans' lips. Is it the way we set up, or is it, the inability to gel or what it is? But, we've got, whatever it is, we've got just under 3 months to probably get it right. All right, let's go to the starting lineup, mate. We had Matty Ryan in goals. Across the back line, we had Jacob Italiano on the right, Jason Guerrier inside him, Alessandro Gicardi in the middle. Lucas Herrington got his starting debut, the 18-year-old. Jordy Bos outside him on the left, and then we had Aidan O'Neill and Connor Metcalf in the middle, and then Martin Boyle in front of them with Riley McGree, and then Denny Urich led the line. So what did you make of the starting lineup? Any surprises in there for you?
No real surprises. Like it was an opportunity, obviously, to play what he wants to see. So obviously we've got the traditional players in there at the back. We've got Ryan obviously starting in goal, so you'd probably expect that in the World Cup that he would start. You've got the ever-reliant Gicardi. He's played Gary in there many a time, so no real surprise there. The big one was Herrington. He's got a lot of plaudits out of this game, and he was the surprise, probably inclusion to see how he'd go. And wow, what a great test it was. But I think we've already wrapped him so many times. It was no shock to us how he performed. So probably Herrington was probably the only left field one out of the back line, because really Jordy Bos as our best left wing back, and Italiano has been available. The position's made available by Lewis Miller not being there, and obviously we've seen a late withdrawal out of Karacic during the week, so it was no surprise to me for Italiano starting. It was his really position to win, and he played like that. And then, like you said, in the midfield, O'Neill been an ever-present, Metcalf ever-present, McGree missed a couple with injury, but it would be in our starting lineup. And then probably the most surprises was how that front line would operate. And obviously, Jurich got his opportunity, even though it was only a half. Martin Ball's been in and out of the side, but he got the role as a 10 or inverted 10. And then realistically, it was how we're going to play and try to link up with that front three, whether it was McGree and Metcalf rotating. So only really that front line really surprised me with the addition of Herrington at the back there.
Yeah, for me, looking at that starting lineup, I was surprised that Gary has started. I know you said that he's played a fair bit under Popovic before, but I thought we might see our kind of typical three in that middle of Deganek, Gicardi, and Cameron Burgess. But I really do like Alessandro Gicardi in that middle, and I wonder if that's what the option is looking for. And even we saw late in the game when Burgess came on that Lucas Herrington switched to the right as well, showing obviously his versatility, even as young as he is as an 18-year-old. So I don't mind as an option. I know Degenek's played really well throughout these qualifiers, and he's been solid. But Shikadi just adds something really different. So it's a matter of if we can replace him in that right centre back spot. His ability to play the ball out from the back and his composure in the middle is really good. So I would expect Burgess to play on the left of that centre back kind of trio, but it's about who comes in on the right. I think Lucas Herrington, yeah, he was pretty good, to be honest. Like, he's pretty unflooded out there and just kind of did his job. There were a few little slips and a few hiccups maybe a little bit later in the game, but definitely that first half, probably first 60 minutes, he was so composed on the ball and shows his ability, his passing accuracy. I think it was at 94% by the end of the game. So just a real good showing from him. But yeah, Sakati in the middle, I think, just offers so much more, doesn't he?
Oh, look, that if you watch the first 5 to 10 minutes, his transition and passing through those lanes were electric. I thought it was some of the best football played out of the back from the Socceroos I've seen probably for the last few years. The way it was so direct and forward. It's normally we go side to side and look for the wing backs, but yeah, it was piercing, wasn't it? And it was great to see. And yeah, look, I think Sakati is a natural at that centre back and at that right side. I don't like he could do any job. So we're not going to lose there. I don't think Herrington's going to start the World Cup. He's not going to put him under that much pressure. It's going to be very intense, different atmosphere. Like we're talking about Cameroon, who only brought out 4 players from the AFCON quarterfinal. So like it's that what we've got to understand the variables that happen on that friendly. But mind you, the young kid we know and we've rated very highly is he belongs in this arena, doesn't he? I don't think it'll be too long before you see him in the Socceroos consistently, but I think, but with that performance, he's definitely going to be pushing for a spot on the plane. But I think his back five has been pretty consistent and probably the most consistent positions, apart from Lewis Miller's injury, over Popovic's reign over the last 12 months. So I think he will fall back on that regular. I think it's just because there's so much going on with everyone where they're playing is why he probably rotated this way. And I think it was at Harrington's advantage that, some of these are in relegation battles, some of them in playoff positions, some are like, it was just bound to me that we're going to mix it up a bit, that because there's so much football that's happening around. You've got Europe, Champions League, all that kind of stuff. Not that a few of these in it, but they're all playing for something in their own club. So it was going to be interesting how and what deals have probably been made to send or give so much time to players. So I think you'll mix it right up against Curaçao on Tuesday. So it's lit up for that, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, I think just that middle three. Obviously, we got the kind of elephant in the room of Harry Susa when he will come back, and then if he does come back in and he ends up playing and starting, you'd assume he'd take up that middle spot, and then Sicardi might fall back onto the right as well, and maybe Burgess comes in, and then it's a matter of who backs up those positions, if it is a Truan or a Herrington or a Guerrier. And then on the other side, obviously, Kai Rolls originally wasn't picked in the squad, but then he has come in as an injury replacement for Frank Karacic as well. So there's certainly some options there for Popovic, and it probably just depends on which way he wants to go with it. You mentioned that first kind of 5 to 10 minutes, and we really did come out of the blocks pretty quickly. We're on the attack, we're on the front foot. We're trying to release our wing backs, get them up on the field. But after that period, we really fell back into a pattern, and we just found it so hard to break down Cameroon. And they're not like they were particularly sitting in, but we just, I don't know, we lacked some speed, or we lacked, I don't know, a bit of trickery in that final third just to be able to unlock things. We were completely dominating possession. I think at one point, in the middle of the first half, we had about 65% possession. So that wasn't our issue. Sometimes that is. But it was just our ability to create chances. Only one shot in the whole first half, 0 on goal. So disappointing in that respect.
It is, but it's the formation that stops that progressiveness, doesn't it? And we're set up like that to obviously play bigger games and to be in that formation, be defensive when we lose the ball. It's more like we're pre-prepared for when we turn it over. That's and when we do advance, it's I even seen like Riley McGree. He gets so far advanced, he gets it, and then there's no one in front of him, or like Juric has had to go back to go get the ball, and then Riley McGree's just standing there by himself. And there was actually a phase of football there where Riley McGree looked up, no one there. He took a moment, took a touch, and then actually laid a nice ball into the box on the right hand side. Actually gave us an opportunity. But that's a slow. What it does is slow everyone down. Cameroon were back in position, and then they thwart the ball into the box because there's just too many defenders there. And it's that formation that doesn't allow that freedom up front, and you play with that extra one at the back. There's just not an extra player there to play. And I think that's why we don't have as many shots. But I still think it's by design, Chief. I don't think this is, a way we, tactically we want to get there and get the ball there. I just think we're tactically already set up to defend. If we turn the ball over, we're ready for the block. And I think when you design that 5-4-1, or you want to make it a, three at the back, there's just not enough numbers forward when you actually push forward. You can see Irankunda, whatever he created, he had to make those bursts by himself pretty much, or you have to wait for someone to put him through. So it's very difficult to counterattack or progressively break with little numbers up there. You're always going to be outnumbered, and if you hold it up, it slows it up, and then the defense gets behind the ball, and you've got to start again. So you've seen how many runs Riley McGree made. Like, he's the perfect example. But again, he was just isolated. Same with Juric. I felt sorry for him only playing half a game because he did come and get the ball. But again, when you're playing back to the wall and you're the lone striker, I don't think we found Jordy Bos in that first half as well to connect. Whether that was, just the way the game rolled out in that first half, it was nice to see him further forward and a bit more direct in the second half because he really wasn't getting much possession in that first half. So, but I still think we're set up and designed that way to only have one or two shots. And I think that's the kind of football that we're going to go to the World Cup with. And we've seen it in the last 12 months.
Yeah, well, it does appear that way. And I suppose, when we do come up against teams of better quality, that's the tactic that we're going with, to be able to sit in, absorb pressure, potentially get something on the break or on a set piece as well. And as frustrating as it is to watch, I suppose when it comes to results in the World Cup, people might think differently.
That's the big one. But you know what, Chief, too? Like, you look at it, and this is the first time we've ever won possession, I think, in pretty much all the friendlies and all the World Cup qualifying. I think this is the first time we've actually won possession. Like, so, like, when I looked at it, I thought, wow, we've finally won possession in a game. And I know that's small talk because it's how effective you are with the ball, but it just goes to show, and we only created one shot in that first half that, it's going to be interesting. Is there ever going to be a time where we can let the shackles go, be a bit more progressive with our football? But maybe that's the journey we're on. Maybe we're such a young group, and which we are. Like, look, Herrington 18, Sakati's only young, Irakunda's only young, Touré's only young, even though he's not there. There's plenty of youth about this side, but we have got a coach that believes in this system for the World Cup, and it's because of what you said. It's because of the opposition that we're going to be playing, and our game is built around effectiveness.
I think that there's a big difference between a 5-4-1 and a 3-4-3, which seems to try and get sold in as the actual formation at times. So it's definitely a 5-4-1 or a 5-2-2-1, however you want to frame it. But yeah, like I think you're a good point around Juric in terms of his isolation up top, because you're right. Like, he can't, if he sticks high, he's probably like 3-on-1, and he's got to hold the ball up and try and win free kicks to progress the ball down the field. And yeah, it's a thankless task up there for sure. So 0-0 at halftime. We saw Nestor Irankunda and Avon Mobile come on at halftime for Danny Juric and Martin Boyle. Irankunda obviously played through the middle. Definitely not my preference for the way that Irankunda is deployed. I'd much rather see him on the right. And I did look at some of the opportunities where Mobile and even McGree picked up those balls in positions out wide and thought, geez, if that was Irankunda, his ability to drive at the defender would have been very dangerous. But in fairness to Irankunda, he put himself about and he did have the majority of the good chances in the second half of the game for the Socceroos.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's just a live wire, isn't he? Mobile found him a couple of times. So you had some ball players in at Hurlstick and that more ball playing. Mobile slipped him in a couple of times, and yeah, he's just a bit isolated, isn't he? When he's up there, he's got always going to have two defenders to beat. Which why when Toure runs off it, and is this the big question? Yeah, without Toure's absence, like, geez, it looks a bit thin up there, doesn't it? And I guess that's why Suto's been picked to probably try him in this next game because, like, what's our backup option if Toure's not there? Like, it's going to be pretty challenging. And you're right. Obviously, he wanted to try if Toure's not there or not fit. Where's Irankunda play? Does he lead the line? But you're right. He's still explosive with his movement, which creates his own opportunities, which is fantastic. And we will find him, won't we, because of his pace. And can we get him in there in those spaces? So he's just better running off, isn't he? Because you don't want him stuck with two central defenders trying to beat him all the time. But won't happen against the best teams. So you could probably, like you said, against the weaker teams, you can, get half a yard. But yeah, it's not going to happen with the teams we're going to play in the World Cup. So but again, it comes back to that: who's the backup to Toure, and doesn't. Hopefully, Sudo puts his hand up, or someone puts their hand up, because it's definitely an opportunity in our squad, isn't it?
It's amazing how reliant we've become on Mohamed Toure in such a short time, considering he wasn't, he got his first start probably mid last year or something, and now though just his injury and we're a bit lost. We've spoken at length about some other strikers that we would like to see in the squad that aren't being given a shot, but yeah, that's the options, I suppose. He had Ante Suso on the bench, but chose not to use him as well, which was interesting. But I'd say we'll see him for some time against Curaçao. But yeah, look, Irankunda, the amazing run that he had late in the game, and reminded us of some of the clips we've seen of him playing for Watford, and even back in his days in the A-League for Adelaide United, where he gets the ball in that open field. And I think, I can't remember if it was Robbie Thompson or Andy Harper said it, that basically the only way that they were going to stop him is doing some kind of illegal action. And yeah, it was that from Cameroon at that point, just to bring him down. But he's absolutely lightning in that open field. So that's where we want to get him. We've seen that in other games as well. That goal he scored against New Zealand, where he just broke up the field so quickly. So that's our opportunity, I suppose, to have him. And you're right, if he gets stuck up front, he just can't do that. Some of the other substitutes that came on in the second half: Aiden Hrustic came on, Paul Okon-Engler came into that double pivot as well, and then Cam Burgess, which I mentioned before, which meant that Lucas Herrington switched to the right-hand side. I thought Hrustic and Okon-Engler did quite well in their time on the field, particularly Okon-Engler. He seems to be continually growing and getting more and more comfortable each time he plays for the Socceroos.
Yeah, absolutely. This is game experience for him, isn't it? It's just like Herrington. The more experience we're going to gain from this is fantastic. It's just good to see him part of this squad now, hopefully entrenched, because I think he's an asset down the path, isn't he? And yeah, we need that extra midfield with a little bit more creativity. When you look at O'Neill and Yazbek and that, they're not as creative. And when Ocon's on there, he does look a lot more forward than what O'Neill and Yazbek does. And that's because O'Neill and Yazbek, they're grinders, aren't they? They're there to win that short ball and pass it on. So Ocon has definitely got much more vision and much more opportunity. He seeks the opportunity to split the lines, which is what his strength is. So I think the more game time we give him, the better it'll be in the next 1 or 2 years. I think because he is that next midfielder that we need in there.
I suppose that was the point also of playing Connor Metcalf alongside Aiden O'Neill. It was probably his job to be that creative one out of that six. It probably didn't happen so much for Connor Metcalf, but that would have been the thought with Popovic, to have him in there. Aiden Hrustic, we should highlight, did miss that penalty. So we've seen him miss some. We've seen him score some, obviously, famously for the Europa League in that final. But it's probably something. Martin Boyle wasn't on the pitch at the time. He takes penalties for Hibs. We've seen Irankunda take and convert some penalties, but we really haven't had a consistent penalty taker, really. Like, I remember the days back in Mila Jednak, and he was so reliable with those penalties. And when we talk about the formation and the moments that we're going to have to take in these big games, a penalty comes up, we're going to need someone reliable to tuck it away, aren't we?
Yeah, it's probably good to find out this stuff here now. Like you've said, you've raised some really good points, but we need to find it, and it's probably good to find out now rather than going into the World Cup group stage. And if we do get a penalty, because who is our number one? Like, would it be Toure if it was in the pitch? It'd be interesting if he was there, but maybe they should have just stuck with the man of the moment, Jacob Italiano, and would have continued his goal scoring because he slotted home a great penalty on the weekend.
Yeah, that's very true.
When confidence is high, is high, you just give them in the ball. But look, Krustik's a great free kick taker, isn't he? And obviously, he's a great striker of the ball. But yeah, it was a bit of a stinker, wasn't it? But well, unfortunately, it didn't hurt us. And like as I said, you got to test these times because you're right. Who is going to step up and do it? And Riley McGrew was another one that would have been off. Would have been interesting. So yeah, it's interesting.
Some later substitutes, Celeste Dagenak, Patrick Yazbek, and Kai Churon came on really late, but didn't really have much of an opportunity to influence the game. Let's talk about Jordy Bos's goal, mate. The man popping up again in the box. He stayed forward after a bit of an attack, and the ball just broken for him. And bit of fortune for the goal for sure. Hrustic stuck out a leg and didn't quite touch it, and then the Cameroon defender getting the touch actually slowed it down for Jordy Bos, because otherwise that was running through to the keeper. But such composure on the finish, and he's just turning into such a world-class player, isn't he?
Oh, mate, this is Feyenoord 101. This is what he does. He slides inside and he stays high. And I wish that in the first half, when Riley McGree was receiving the ball higher, that Metcalf and Bos could join that front line a little bit more inside rather than just sitting outside all the time. I thought we got sucked into just going back outside. So he loves drifting in, and he's very dangerous around that area. So he just continues to grow, doesn't he? And yeah, he's going to be really important at the World Cup. It's no doubt about it. He is one of our key players that we need to make sure he's fully ready and right, because he's going to make such a big difference. He is our X factor in this Socceroos, and I don't think we fed him the right ball in the first half, or he just didn't get in those positions that he normally would. He probably would have been frustrated himself, but like when he drifts inside in that 10 and 9 area, well, he's just at the ball at his feet. He's just a maestro. And yeah, look, it was a bit fortuitous. I think Ocon was trying to feed him that little rustic move, just put off the defender, and but you got to be in the right spot at the right time, and that's what Bos does so well.
Just a tactical question there for you, because you're the more tactical-minded one of the two of us. But if Jordy Bos is playing as that left wing back, shouldn't he be the one that's creating the width? So if he's coming inside, where's the width coming from? And are we just congesting that middle space too much if that's what his inclination is to come inside and do that?
Well, this is where look, it's where you play the 10s, isn't it? If you want them to stick inside, then it's going to be difficult for them to cut in. But I think the asset, you look at Irankunda, who's a natural wide player, and him going out and Bos coming in and vice versa, would play havoc with defences, yeah? And this is what I would like their runs to be. Like what Irankunda sliding out, Bos sliding in, or Bos staying out wide with Irankunda trying to link up in that channel. I think that's what we should. We've got to be a lot more inverted and in that front third, because like I said, when Riley McGrew was picking the ball up in that half, there was just no options, and we was just isolated all the time. And like even Connor Metcalf, he's a more wide. He's a 10, but he can get out wide. And I think if we can learn to invert and then go out and let Bos and that drift inside, you're separating the defenders, and you're causing like who's picking up who. And it's that movement that causes confusion in defence where I think we'll get the most joy. But again, I just think in the first half he was offering that width. But again, if one goes in, one goes out, and we suck the defender to follow that 10, then you're going to open up a space in behind, aren't you, in the channel? And that's where I want Bos to take advantage of. And it's where McGree normally picks up the ball. So again, these kind of combinations. And look, let's be honest, we haven't seen McGree, Irankunda, Toure, Bos together. So this might be what we might see in the World Cup, because no doubt, and no doubt Jackson Irvine will be there too. You're talking about quality footballers who can deliver quality ball. And that's why I was a little bit surprised. I just wanted to, sorry, backtrack a little with O'Neill. It was like we only played the 1-6, wasn't it? And but we weren't willing to release Metcalf from that 8, or you know what I mean, or McGree got higher, but Metcalf kind of sat, didn't he? Like it was, I wondered when we pushed forward to transition to Metcalf to go with him, but you know when you just sit there, then again we get isolated up front with not enough numbers. So that I think it'd be a big weapon. But we again, this could be all preparation for what we see in the World Cup, because we haven't actually played these players together. And you see when McGree come off, the other one come on. You know what I mean? So maybe this is just work behind in play, and it'll unfold in the World Cup. Well, I'm hoping it will anyway. Because can you imagine with Toure's fit, with Irankunda in there, with Metcalf, McGree, and Bos? Like we're talking like probably our best combination footballers there that really can use it well.
We do hope there's a plan for the World Cup. But I just wanted to pick up on your point around the Sixers as well, because when Ocon Engsler came on, it really was a response there to go and get the ball off the centre backs as well. And similar to what we spoke about the last couple of weeks with Kyra Cooney-Cross, it's like their ability to go back there and pick up the ball and then move quickly, dictate the play, and whether that's a quick ball or that's dribbling as well. But it's the tempo of not wanting to just recirculate the ball back through the centre backs and pass backwards and sideways, but it's ability to get the ball forward. And just on your point around the width on the left, we probably don't have. All I can think of is Craig Goodwin, someone who will really hold the space on that left and got a quality left foot, because all of our kind of wingers are tended to be right footers that are going to want to cut inside rather than go outside their defenders. So it's a challenge there, I think, because I agree Jordy Bos is very dangerous when he does come inside, but then like who's offering that width out wide? So probably something that needs to be thought through. 8 changes for 8 substitutions, for the Socceroos on Friday night. So only Matty Ryan, Jordy Bos, and Lucas Herrington played the full 90 minutes. So what changes would you expect for Curaçao?
I think goalkeeper, I think you'll see the local boy Beach get an opportunity at home in Melbourne. I think Izzo and Ryan have got European commitments. I think they will be obviously rested for this one. I think you'll see Azerbaijan come in for left back. I think left wing back, you'll see Jordy Bos rested after a full game. I think he's got commitments with Feyenoord, so I think you'll see that one change. I think you'll probably see Degenac come into the middle. I'm not sure. I think Siccardi might be rested for this one again. He's got to go back to Italy. They're in a safe position, but still got some big games in Serie A. I think Jacob Italiano will continue to play on the right side. He'll want to see more of him and get more familiar with that. And I think Kai Chuan will come into the starting lineup as well. And forwards, probably I'd love to see Sudo start and get some game time. Let's have a look at him. And Valupale, which has been one of Tony Popovic's favourites to in the last campaign. Obviously, he hasn't had much time in the previous 6 months, but he was in that World Cup qualification. There he starting in a lot of those games. Yeah, and I think Alex Robinson will probably see. Didn't see much of him, obviously, the other night. So I think Robbo will come in and get his opportunity. I'm hoping with like Ocon and Yazbek, because they've really deserved their opportunity. Because I think Roland McGree again got to go back to Middlesbrough, and probably even Metcalf, even though he hasn't had much game time against St. Pauli, probably you've seen the difference. He wasn't as sharp, was he? But he's still only just got back not long ago. So Metcalf is just probably struggling for a bit of fitness and sharpness. But good to see him get that hit out the other night. So, yeah, a few changes, I think, in each position. I don't think Pop will, hold the same 11. I think he'll really throw it in. And it'd be interesting to see whether actually Herrington starts again and whether he plays, Truan Degnac. Because I think even Burgess may be in there will be interesting on that left side. So, that's probably the only question I have, but I think you're going to see a number of changes with a lot of commitments on the weekend coming up for a lot of those championship boys and in Europe, who those players in Europe.
Yeah, so we obviously saw 19 of the 26-man squad used so far, and maybe excluding one of the keepers, you'd expect the other 6 to definitely get some game time, because I kind of think, what's the point of this close to World Cup? What's the point of bringing them out if you're not going to at least have a bit of a look at them? So, yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see a fair few changes. So that match is on Tuesday night, 8 o'clock on the Eastern Seaboard, for a game against Curaçao, and as I said before, they lost 2-0 to China. So based on the way that China was in qualifying, and if squads are kind of similar, you'd expect the Socceroos, and I think they would expect themselves to get a win against Curaçao, and that'd be good boost of confidence to pick up 2 wins in this window, despite, as we said before, Cameroon not bringing out the strongest squad. All right, Mopper, let's go to a bit of overseas action now. Bit happening during the week, even though it is International Week. On Wednesday, we saw Port Vale go down 1-0 to Doncaster, with Joe Gauci making 2 saves in his 90 minutes, but not mathematically done yet, Port Vale, but just about in that case. And they'll be playing League 2 football next season. Also on Wednesday, Arsenal beat Chelsea 3-1 in the first leg of the Women's Champions League quarterfinal. No Aussies featured, as they had just returned from the Asian Cup. Yeah, which you spoke about on Sunday night, didn't you, mate? About the way that the window has worked out for our Matildas, and real shame that they've all missed out on such a big game in the Women's Champions League.
Yeah, it's completely unfair, isn't it? And it needs to be looked at, and hopefully it gets reviewed and corrected next time. All right, mate. But on Thursday night, we've seen BK Häcken beat Frankfurt in their first leg of the Europa Cup semi-final. What about this young lady, Ivy Luik, the veteran, playing a full game in a massive Champions League game? Hayley Russo obviously plays for Frankfurt, but she doesn't feature. Another Matilda impacted by that final. And, Häcken 3-0 up in the first leg and looking great. And they had a great year in Sweden, so they'll be very difficult to beat. Friday, the Socceroos are closer to finding out their World Cup opponents, as Turkey and Kosovo will go head-to-head after winning their matches to advance, with that contest due to take place on Wednesday morning. And very exciting too for Australian fans as well, because Graham Arnold's Iraq also play on Wednesday against Bolivia, with the winner obviously going to the World Cup. So all eyes on Wednesday morning will be turning to who's in our group, and to see whether another Australian coach, Graham Arnold, pulls off Iraq. So I think it's first, if they can pull it off, it'll be their first time at the World Cup.
I think it's first in 40 years or something, but yeah, definitely first for a very long time for Iraq. So yeah, Graham Arnold, big job ahead of him. Let's cheer him on, hopefully, and get across the line. What do you make of Turkey and Kosovo? Based purely on rankings, Turkey's, I think, about 24th, for kind of around our mark, and Kosovo's, I think, 50th. So going purely on rankings, you'd think that Kosovo's the slightly easier opponent. And if Turkey actually win, it brings our group really close. Us, obviously, if it is Turkey, USA, and Paraguay, all quite similar in rankings. So it makes it a really tough group for all of us, basically.
Yeah, and that's what you want, isn't it? Like, I think Kosovo's a good side, and I think Turkey's a good side. That they're a bit hot and cold, aren't they? Turkey, they can have their moments, and then they can just fall apart. So, look, I'd be happy to play either. Like, it's no point saying Kosovo because their rankings, the better team to play, because at a World Cup it's do or die. It's the biggest game in football. So look, I just can't wait to see who we're playing so we can start planning. And I reckon you're spot on about our group. Everyone can beat everyone, but that could play advantage to everyone as well, which is good because we said could possibly be 3 teams qualify. So it'll go to show how important that first game's going to be. We're going to have to be on from the moment, because if we can get that first game up, all the pressure will be on the other teams.
Yeah, definitely, mate. All right, let's go to a bit of action over the weekend. In England, in the WSL, Manchester City move 11 points clear at the top with a 2-0 win over Manchester United. Mary Fowler got some late minutes off the bench, but yeah, it looks like almost a foregone conclusion that Manchester City will wrap up the WSL this season. Over to Arsenal, 90 minutes for Steph Catley and a goal in 45 minutes off the bench for Caitlin Foord as Arsenal beat Spurs 5-2. And reports out of Arsenal that Kyra Cooney-Cross has stayed in Australia post-Asian Cup and will miss the rest of the season to be with her family. So, yeah, good from Arsenal if that's the case. And, yeah, we, of course, want to just give our best to Kyra Cooney-Cross and her family who are dealing with her mum's illness at the moment. And, yeah, I just want to send all our best to the Cooney-Cross family.
Yeah, well said, and family first. And yeah, we wish the family and thoughts absolutely that's in this very difficult moment for them. All right, mate, we've got Rafael Borges Rodriguez. If we go down to League One, played 82 minutes, but Wigan lost 3-0 to Reading. Wigan are 2 points above the relegation zone, so it's all happening in all the leagues at the moment, but very tight Wigan. They've put themselves in a very poor position lately. Hopefully they can bounce back. And another tough day in League One for Joe Gauci. He made 5 saves, but he conceded 4 as Port Vale lost 4-0. Looks curtains for Port Vale, as we all know, but they'll maybe they're saving themselves for the big quarterfinal against Chelsea, so we'll see what happens in the FA Cup. It'll be their last saviour. In Germany, we also got 90 minutes for Leah Varley as her Nuremberg go down 2-0 to Bayern Munich, so that's good experience for Leah. And Melbourne City, Chief, this was a massive game, and they are through to the Asian Women's Champions League semi-finals for the second straight season after a 2-1 win, over Nassif. Holly McNamara, the Matilda, put City ahead in the 38th minute, with Nassif equalising 4 minutes later. Then the big moment, Shenazar Akodo comes off the bench and scores a late winner just 8 minutes later to send City through. City will also crown A-League women premiers without even kicking a ball after results went their way too on the weekend. Chief, they're edging ever so close to redemption after last year.
Yeah, what an achievement. Yeah, 3 A-League's women's premierships in a row and, yeah, back-to-back semi-finals at least in the Asian Women's Champions League. So massive day for Melbourne City as a club, but particularly that women's group, yeah, just going from strength to strength. And they'll be, obviously wrapped up the Premiers play in the A-League Women's, and they'll be very tough to beat in the finals. And obviously fighting on multiple fronts, but yeah, it'd be great to see them do well, particularly through Asia, and to right the wrongs of last season when they fell just short. So let's go through some of the A-League women's action. There was a bit happening. Midweek, we saw on Tuesday the Central Coast Mariners beat Wellington Phoenix 2-1 to move into the top 6. The first Mariners goal came through a header from 18-year-old Eliza Vermaelen, assisted by Peter Trimmis in the 58th minute. The Mariners doubled their lead through a very nice strike from Izzy Gomez, but the goal of the night, Mopper, goes to Macy Fraser of Wellington, who puts her 30-yard free kick into the top corner. This was an absolutely spectacular goal. Go and seek it out if you haven't seen it. So good to see her back after her break during the season, but what a strike this was. Absolutely amazing.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, mate. I'll have to scope it out. But yeah, anyone who scores a 30-yard free kick, mate, deserves all the recognition. That was a sensational to see her back to after an absence. So unfortunately, didn't get the win, but got the goal of the game.
Absolutely, mate. Friday night, we saw a goal fest between Brisbane Roar and Perth Glory, with the team from the Sunshine State prevailing 5-2. And the game was littered with defensive and goalkeeping errors, with the pick of the goals coming from Kyra Stevenson, a very nice strike from long range. Tamiki Yallop also scored the last of Brisbane's goals as she continued her return from injury. They're having quite the run at the back end of the season, Brisbane Roar, pushing right up into the middle of those finals places. On Saturday, we saw a couple of huge upsets. Firstly, Newcastle Jets with a dominant 3-1 win over Adelaide United. Kelly Bryan got a double, and Josie Allen had a tap in for Newcastle, while captain Isabel Hodgson scored for Adelaide. Claudia Jenkins in goal for Adelaide prevented this one getting uglier. She made an absolutely amazing, at least double, maybe even triple save at one point. But yeah, also at the other end, we saw a debut in goals for the Jets for Ali Borch as well. So good to see for the Jets. They've left it too late for the finals, but big upset for them. And then in the other game on Saturday, it was two terrible giveaways from Melbourne Victory that were both pounced on by Riley Tanner and finished expertly to give Sydney FC a shock 2-1 win. They were temporarily off the bottom of the ladder mopper, at least for 24 hours, but we'll get to why they're not still off the bottom of the ladder in a sec. Rachel Lowe had earlier given Victory the lead, but this result was crucial for their hopes of making the finals. And then today, Wellington Phoenix lost their second game in 5 days with a shock 1-0 loss to the Wanderers. Shamarin Kamas made 6 saves for the Wanderers, while their goal came through substitute Yuan Kong. So massive upset with the Wanderers beating the Wellington Phoenix. And then the last game of the round was a stalemate between the Mariners and Canberra, which sets up an intriguing last round of the competition because the Mariners just holding on to that final spot, and then some other teams pushing up, and it's going to be a fascinating last round of the competition, mate. I'm just going to go through the fixtures because it's going to be pretty set, the first 5, but there's still some jeopardy in that 6th spot as well. So we have Adelaide United taking on Wellington Phoenix, both of those two teams suffering those shock losses over the weekend. Perth Glory, who are out of the finals, but Melbourne Victory desperately need a win to get into the finals. And then we see Central Coast Mariners holding that 6th spot, playing against Sydney FC, who have very little to play for. Canberra United and Brisbane Roar both battling it out for those finals places, and then Newcastle Jets playing Melbourne City. But you could probably expect Melbourne City to rest a few in that dead rubber because they can't be knocked off that first spot. So very intriguing last weekend of the A-League women's competition coming up, mate.
Yeah, it's still all to play for, isn't it? And even Wellington need to hold to win to secure that second spot, so they stay out of that second playoff qualifiers. So it's good to see everyone's in there. And unfortunately for Newcastle, Western Sydney, and Sydney, they can't impact it, and Perth Glory with their goal difference probably won't impact it either. So there's still a few important games in there to settle the top 6, but well done to all the girls. They've had a fantastic season, and we look forward to seeing the finals after next week.
Absolutely, mate. Some of the other news out of this week, bit of movement from Sydney FC with Ufuk Talay. I think there was a mutual termination of his contract. Plenty of rumours that he is going to be signing for the Western Sydney Wanderers. And it's seen Patrick Kisnorbo being put in charge for the remainder of the season. What do you make of, firstly, Talay out, and then secondly, Kisnorbo coming in?
Well, it was just so planned, wasn't it? It was just like you normally say, coach, you don't have anyone, you've got to find someone, but they already had him pretty much lined up. So this must have been done early. Sydney FC haven't won a game for 3 games. They've only had 1 draw, 2 losses. They were in the title race pretty much with a game in hand, but have had a shocking last 3 weeks. They're still 5th. They didn't make the finals last year, but they will definitely obviously make the finals this year, you'd think, with a 6-point gap over Central Coast. But something's just hasn't been right with Sydney FC this year, has it? Like, I know they've improved and they're up there in that 3rd place and dropped back a little bit now, but I never felt comfortable or right that everyone was on the same page as Sydney FC. And obviously this is what's played out because, why take a coach that, has got 5th place if you're stuck with him last year when you didn't make the final. So it's a bit of a interesting one behind the scenes, I think. And Kisnorbo, look, he's a proven coach. He's probably a good fit for Sydney FC, actually, to be honest. And, he was available, so why not take him up? I think it'll be trying to get this playing group on side and getting his own formation. But, with all that noise with Talay and that, during the season, just seems to be unfolding that's where he's going. And clearly Talay wasn't happy there either. So, yeah, maybe just a unhappy marriage and they're both going their separate ways and moving on. But yeah, I just thought strange with only a few games to go that that happens. But you don't know what internally what's happened either because I don't think that Tele ever had that playing group at its peak, did he? And especially with all the talent he's got, just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, well, I suppose ever since those rumours of the Wanderers came up, Sydney FC would probably put in a pretty tough spot. They can't have their head coach being linked to their biggest rivals. And I suppose, yeah, once that happened, they needed to kind of have that conversation with Tully and we spoke about this even before the season. There was rumours of a German coach, I think it was, being lined up to take his spot if he had a poor start to the season. So there's definitely been some moments for Sydney FC and they've kind of put teams away in certain games, but yeah, it just hasn't really clicked for them, has it? And I think with Kisnorbo coming in as well, what he is really known for is his fitness and his ability to kind of, he's pretty ruthless. So I wonder if he's going to put a bit of a rocket up the Sydney FC team during the back end of the season, the last few games and into the finals. And it might be kind of something they need. I think I look at Sydney FC and particularly think about some of those foreigners, and I don't think that they've been particularly good throughout the season, and maybe even some of the players they brought in January this season. And he's not going to be worried about making tough decisions, Kiz Norbo. He's probably looking at it as this is his audition to potentially get the role full time. So if he could come in there and have a strong back end to the season and possibly even get Sydney FC to go on and win the A-League Championship, he's going to put himself right in the frame for that permanent job. So, yeah, I mean, he's kind of famous for putting noses out of joint. And I remember when he was at Melbourne Victory and when he benched Arzani, I think it was for the Australia Cup final, and everyone was quite shocked at that kind of move. But yeah, he's not afraid to make these tough decisions. So it could be a good thing for Sydney FC coming into the back of the end of the season. He's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm sure Sydney FC fans will get behind him if he can go on and win them some silverware.
Yeah, I'm very curious. If there's any Sydney FC fans listening, or I'd love to see, are you happy with this move, or do you think this is the right move forward? I'd get mixed reactions over this. So, yeah, if there's any Sydney FC fans, drop us a line. I'd love to hear what the reaction is. And are you happy? Or because it just did not seem right, Tally, at all, especially for all that noise at the end. So they've got Brisbane anyway this Thursday. They've got, the first game off the bat. So it'd be interesting how they respond. Western Sydney Derby 9 days later.
There you go. All right. The other news was Sam Kerr. We had a question about this a couple of weeks back, but Sam Kerr rumored to be leaving Chelsea. Word is that she's been offered a 1-year contract that she might not accept, and there's a potential that she's going to Boston Legacy in the NWSL in America. Her partner, Christy Mills, is from Boston, so kind of that would make a lot of sense. So what do you make of that move? I know you said before that, whatever kind of level of competitive football she's playing, as long as she's playing, that's a good thing for the Matildas.
Yeah, I think like with the partnership and the marriage and the child, it was going to be one or the other, wasn't it? And it makes sense that around the family and home that this is where she will end up in America. And yeah, Boston need a chief. They've lost 3 in a row at the start of the season, so they're last. So a pickup of Sam Kerr is going to be fantastic. And yeah, Boston close to New York, and yeah, I think this has probably been planned out. This is their next step in life, and like yeah, I the next 12 months, 15 months, sorry, is the World Cup. So as long as she's playing in a competitive league, which we know America is, it offers. It used to be the destination before the Women's Super League really got up and running. It offers, I think, a great standard for her to keep her fitness for the next World Cup preparation.
Yeah, I agree with that, mate. And I was reading an article just today about the investment that they're putting into the NWSL. So there's some big contracts being offered. So we'll see if Sam Kerr can get a bit of a piece of that. But no doubt that that's going to happen. And I think Millie Bright's in a similar situation where she's going to be leaving Chelsea as well. So a bit of the changing of the guard at Chelsea. Obviously, with them not being able to compete in the WSL this season, they're probably looking for a few changes for next season. So, yeah, let's hope that it all works out for Sam Kerr and whatever is going to be the best situation for her. All right, mate, let's go to our team of the week. Annalie Grove for the Mariners in goals. Good performances for her, both on the weekend and midweek as well. I'm going with 4 of our 5 across the back line for the Socceroos because I thought they were pretty good, all of these guys. Jordy Bos, Lucas Herrington, Alessandro Ciccardi, and Jacob Italiano. In the midfield, we've got Sophie Hoban of the Newcastle Jets, Paul O'Connor and Tamika Yallop. And then up front, Nestor Irankunda, Holly McNamara, and Caitlin Foord. And who, Mopper, is your super sub for the week?
How can you go past the European Ivy Luik for Australia, 41 years of age, still doing it in the Europa League, smacking Frankfurt 3-0. She could finish with a league title and potentially a European trophy. That would be amazing. She just continues to be a rock. And Ivy Luik, you are an absolute stalwart and a star at 41. You're a legend. So, my Moppers pick of the week this week. Well done, Ivy, for her European campaign.
Great pick, mate. Well done to Ivy Luik. And obviously we wish her the best in her European endeavours and hopefully she can lift some silverware. All right, that's going to do us for tonight, Mopper. We'll come back midweek. We'll do a reaction podcast to the Socceroos when they take on Curaçao on Tuesday night. So we hope you can join us then. In the meantime, enjoy your football.
Yeah, all the best. Big week, everyone, isn't it? It's World Cup qualification and Socceroos in town in Melbourne. Hopefully they get a good crowd.